So I'm going to teach you how to box in this video. I'm going to go through the basics, and this is great if you're a beginner and you have no knowledge at all of boxing. So we're going to start right at the fundamentals. First of all, we're going to talk about stance. Now, when you build a house, you set the foundations. It's exactly the same for when you build your boxing skills. You set the foundations, you get your feet right before you start throwing punches and learning how to defend. If you're right-handed, it means that your right foot is going to be back and your left foot is going to be forward. This means you're orthodox. If you're left-handed, then your left foot's going to be back and your right foot's going to be forward. This means you're southpaw. You want about 60% of your weight on the back foot and 40% of your weight on the front foot. And you want to turn your front foot out about 30 degrees and your back foot out about 45 degrees. This will allow you to be in the correct position, ready to throw punches, and as I said, build on your boxing foundations, i.e. your feet. Now we've got the feet right, we need to build our guard properly. You're going to get in your stance and you're going to bring your hands out to their shoulder height in front of you. Then you're going to tuck your elbows into your stomach and concave your stomach and round your back. So it should look like this. This is to make you as small a target as possible and keep your elbows tucked in to defend your liver and spleen. Now you've got the elbows in, you want to bring your chin down. You do this by relaxing your neck and letting your chin almost sit on your chest. Obviously, it's not going to be able to sit all the way, but the further you can tuck your chin down, then the harder you're going to be to hit. And if you get hit off the top of the head, it's nowhere near as bad as getting hit on the bottom of the chin. With your hands, you want your rear hand, so if you're orthodox, your right hand, if you're southpaw, your left hand, to be tucked just under your temple. And you want your front hand to be just in front of your face so you can see over it, but so it's almost like covering your chin. Now, you can change this guard around. There's all different types of guard that we've covered in other videos, but general rule of thumb is that you keep this sort of position here. Remember, keeping your elbows tucked in. Don't have your hands out here like this or up here like this. Stay nice and tucked up. And the more you can maintain that shape, then the better the foundations will be to build on your punches. Now we've got the stance and the guard out of the way, it's time to move on to punches. With our elbows being tucked in and our weight distribution being 60% of the weight on this foot and 40% of this foot, we're in the perfect position to start throwing our shots. We can start with the jab, the most used punch in boxing. And this is like a little pistol or a little target finder for the bigger punches, the right hands, the left hooks, the right hooks, so on and so forth. So the jab is like a whip. You whip out this hand whilst maintaining this shape and this weight distribution. You don't want to move your feet around. We'll get into the footwork later. We don't want to move your feet around just yet. We want to maintain this stance, and it's effectively an arm punch. We can do a slight little twist to the shoulder just to pop it out, but it's mostly your arm being completely relaxed and you're just whipping it to find the target. We did a whole video on the jab, so go check that out if you want to go more in depth on that. The next shot that follows is the cross. Obviously, it's my right hand because I'm orthodox, but the cross, if you're southpaw, it's going to be your left hand. When you're throwing the cross, you need to focus on the rotation of your hips. Now, this is not going to be something that you can learn very easily. It's going to take a lot of practice, but you want to keep your weight on the back foot, on the ball of your foot, having your heel slightly lifted. I should have explained that in the stance video, but at least now you know. And whilst keeping your elbow tucked in, rested on your stomach, you want to just rotate your hips. Let's not worry about the arm at all now, but we'll rotate our hips to the position where it's perpendicular to the direction of my punch. So I want to think about it. And also, my foot is pointing in the direction of my punch as well. We don't want to rotate our foot too far this way, where the heel comes over like that. We just want to rotate it to the direction that the punch is going. We want to bring our shoulder up to our chin. So we want to keep our arm completely relaxed. The punch doesn't come from tensing up your arm and pushing it out like this. It comes from off the rotation of your hips. So think about the rotation of your hips before you think about throwing your arm out there, and then it just comes out like a whip. Like so. You want to bring your shoulder all the way up to your chin. You want to look down your arm to the knuckle with your chin tucked behind your shoulder, and you want a slight kink in your wrist. Having a kink in your wrist is going to allow you to land it on the knuckles. The only point during the punch where your arm actually tenses up is at the very last second. It stays completely relaxed until there, and then right there, as it locks out, your elbow needs to lock out, by the way. As it locks out, that's where your arm and shoulder tenses up, and then it goes straight back to relaxed, and it comes straight back to your chin. Like that. The next punch is the left hook. Left hook, we want to start by getting into our stance and leaving the arm completely relaxed down by our side. And then we just want to start by, it looks kind of funny, keep our right hand up where it should be. And then we're just going to start by swinging our arm like this. We're not coming off balance. We're not going over like this. We're keeping our weight distribution correct so that our feet don't move and we stay planted. Like this. You also notice that as I'm doing this, I'm turning my knuckle over like that. And my arm is like a whip, just a piece of rope being swung round like a hammer throw. That's how you want to think about it. All of that power and weight is right in the end of my knuckles, and the faster I can whip it, the more damage it's going to do. As it gets to this point where the target will be, then this is where, just like the right hand, my arm will stiffen up. I want to turn over my knuckle so it lands on the knuckle. If it lands on the knuckle, it's going to do a lot more damage. Same thing applies with the shoulder. Bringing the shoulder up to the chin, and we're turning that knuckle over. The reason why we're turning the knuckle over is because we're at long range. As we get shorter and shorter range, it's more and more advantageous to have the palm either facing downwards or facing you. You can snap with the shoulder this way. So now we've got this down where we're just flinging our arm around like this. We're going to now throw it from here, keeping that arm relaxed still, whipping with our shoulder, and then we're going to throw it from here. I'll show you from front on. When we throw it from here, we're going to draw a C shape with our hand like this. We're going to try keep our elbow tucked in and our hand up, and turn the knuckle as it comes over. A shorter range left hook would be where our palm faces down. Exact same principle. And a close range left hook would be where our palm faces us. We can also do longer range hooks with our palm facing us. But if it goes really long range, then our opponent will have to be slightly off to the side for it to actually connect on the knuckles. We don't want it to be a slap where the punch lands like this, because that'll just get you a warning, or even worse, point deducted, or even worse, disqualified if you keep doing it. Next punch is the right hook. The right hook, similar to the cross, or sorry, the rear hook, because obviously you could be southpaw. It's exactly the same as throwing a cross, except we're just bringing our hand to here. We're having a bend in the elbow, and we're just rotating our hips. Bring it to here and rotate. And we want to land that knuckle on as well to cause as much damage as we can. Think about the rotation more than the arm. The more you can do that, the better the punch will come. Same principles apply as the left hook. We keep our arm relaxed, and we can draw that little C as well, especially if we're going for those long range. And short range, mid-range, long range. The next punch is the left uppercut. The left uppercut is probably one of the harder punches to throw, but the same principles apply in terms of rotation, even though the punch isn't going straight out or to the side. Because it's coming up, that's why it's so hard to throw, because we're still focused on the rotation of our hips horizontally whilst we throw the punch upwards. So you need to get this hip movement still going whilst bringing that shot up. That's the hard bit about it. a slight dip with our hand to about here, and then we bring it up as our hips rotate. And again, we want to keep our arm nice and relaxed. You can go long range. Oh. You can go mid range, or you can go short range. When we go short range, we want to actually use a slight dip in our knee. The other two ranges, we just want to focus on the rotation of our hip. But when it's short range, we kind of want to get under and through the middle of our opponent's guard. So we have a little dip and then we come up, landing right on the knuckle, making sure our palm's facing us. The right uppercut, again, similar to the other punches with the backhand, or the rear uppercut, should I say. We're letting gravity slightly to drop our arm like this. And then we sort of guide it upwards with the rotation of our body as it gets to here. And then we tense on impact. Again, we want to kink our wrists so that we're landing on the knuckles. As it lands, then it tenses. It doesn't tense up before. I said we're guiding the weight of gravity with our arm. And that means that our arm has to be completely relaxed for it to actually be fast enough to generate any power. So it's got to be relaxed. And then we guide it up with the rotation of our body. Again, you can do it at different ranges. You can bring it longer. This means we're going to draw a bigger C. And then we can go mid-range. And then short range, again, that little dip. Drawing a smaller C. And landing it that way. 2 more punches to cover, stay with. We've got the left hook to the body. The left hook to the body is quite a hard punch to throw, and there's a lot of different ways to throw it. A lot of people teach it as if they're slipping inside before throwing it and loading this leg up to, you know, like push up like that. But from personal experience, as an elite amateur boxer, that doesn't work. Everyone on the internet says that's how you do it. It just doesn't work. And the way I've been told does work, so I'm going to share it with you. All you need to do is, instead of like loading this leg up, you just need to keep your body straight, like there's a string coming out the top of your head and you're rotating about this string. And all you need to do is drop the hand to about here and then rotate your body until it lands roughly in the region of your opponent's liver and puts them on the floor. That's the aim. So just drop the hand, let gravity drop the hand to the right position and rotate. Like that. Then we've got the right hook to body, exact same story. Drop, rotate the body. Always bring back to guard your head. With the hooks to the body, our palms are facing upwards because we want to sort of dig up and under the rib cage. So a good way to think about hooks to the body, drop your arms by your sides like this and then just rotate your body. And it probably looks stupid, but that is essentially what you're doing. It's just you're bringing it from your hands like that. We talked about stance, building your guard and throwing each punch. Now we need to talk about how we can move ourselves around the ring effectively without fucking up what we've already learned. This means we need to get in our stance and not deviate from this weight distribution or positioning of our feet too much whilst we move. And we do that by opening up the stance and then closing it. For example, when I'm moving forward, I'm going to take my front foot first, then my back foot. So moving forward, be like this. Moving backwards, I'm going to take my back foot first, then my front foot. Forward, backwards. If I'm moving to the left, I'm going to take my left foot first, then my right, opening, closing, opening, closing. If I'm moving to my right, I'm going to take my right foot first, opening, closing, opening, closing, opening, closing. From there, we've also got pivots, and we can take angles by shifting to the right or to the left, or we can just use a pivot. With a pivot, we're going to deviate from the weight distribution ever so slightly, just for a split second, whilst we transfer the weight onto our front foot as we push off with our back foot and pivot no more than 90 degrees. We're not going to worry about pivoting 180 degrees yet. Obviously, you see a lot of professional boxers doing that, but if we're just learning the basics, we're going to focus on 90 degrees first. So pivot into our right, pivot into our left, and we just want to practice these pivots. Now we can incorporate steps and pivots, i.e. a step pivot, step, pivot, step, pivot. We can integrate our footwork with our punches as well. When we're integrating footwork and punches, the corresponding side lands with the same side. For example, when I throw a jab, as the jab lands, my left foot will land. As I throw a backhand, my back foot will land. And that's how we're going to move around the ring. Same for going backwards, to the right, and to the left. And throwing any punch that we want to, going in any direction. Obviously, this is going to take a little bit of time to get right and really refine the motor skills to make your feet and hands work in synchronicity. This section is about defenses. There's 3 types of defenses. We've got foot defenses, hand defenses, and head movement or trunk defenses. We'll start with the most useful and easiest to understand, foot defenses. Foot defenses is taking yourself in and out of range when you're either defending or when you're attacking. You do this by simply stepping the back foot, then the front foot, or when you want to get back into range, you step with the front foot, then the back foot, then you get your shots off and then back out of range. You can also do this by just moving one foot. This is called a drop step. You just take the back foot. You see my head is now further backwards. I can come back into range, throw my punches, or I can just take the front foot, can land my shot, and then I can get back out of range. We went way more in depth on this in the Ultimate Footwork Guide for Boxing video. So go check that one out if you want to have a more in-depth look at defending with your feet. The next defense is hand defenses. The most basic type of hand defense is from when you're in your guard position, using the side of your your first finger and just putting it on your brow like this. This is called a full block. When people throw straight shots trying to get through this block, you can bring it slightly together to catch those shots, stop them getting through. You can also block either temple like this by just bringing your hand slightly up, or you can catch and parry. Catching and parry is usually if someone's throwing a jab and they're also orthodox, I'll just turn my hand and put a little bit of weight behind it to catch that shot before it reaches my chin. A parry is slightly different. A parry, I'm not trying to stop the shot. I'm trying to use the force of the punch and guide it off its target. Just by knocking it down slightly, so they're throwing a cross, I can knock that slightly off its track and then put them off balance, ready to counter them. Other hand defenses, we want to block to the body using our elbows, keeping our elbows nice and tucked in like this, and then just moving them whatever shot we see coming. And that is how we defend with our hands. The next defense is trunk defenses or head movement. Now, there's several ways you can move your head. The first one, the most basic one, is called a dip. And you do this by just bending your knees slightly to go under a shot. You're not changing the position of your torso in any way. You're just dipping your knees to go under one of their straight shots or a hook. Another common defense you'll see, a head movement defense, is slipping. Now, you can slip inside, depending on whether they're orthodox or southpaw. You can slip outside like this. A great drill to practice this is just by touching your knees. This should take your head just far enough off the center line to evade punches coming forward. You only want to slip by rotating your hips. You don't want to move your head like this in any way. You just want to rotate your body. The next defense or head movement that you can use is called a roll. Now, a roll usually comes off a slip. So if I slip this way, I'll generally roll back this way. And we roll by drawing a U shape with our nose, whilst bending our knees to go under. So just think about drawing that U shape. We're not leaning forward. We're not hinging at the hip. However, that is also a different type of head movement. That's what we call a weave. If we hinge at the hip, you see Mayweather do this a lot. Keep our hands high. We can go under shots like this. However, we don't want to look at the ground. We still really want to keep our eyes on our opponent, even though we're hinging at the hips. But if you're a beginner, completely ignore the weave. That's for later on. Just focus on dips, the slips, and rolls. And that is the defense section. Next is the flow of boxing. Now, when I was talking about the rotation of your hips when you're slipping, is the same rotation that you use when you throw punches. See? The same rotation of my hips, whether I'm slipping, rolling, or throwing punches. Now, the flow of the boxing means that we are combining this rotation of our hips from left to right to let our offense, i.e. our punches, flow into our defenses, like head movement, for example. So an example of this would be I throw 1, 2, you see, watch my hips, then I'm going to roll back to this position and roll the other way, back to this position, and I can throw a left hook and then a backhand. You'll notice throughout the whole of that combination, all my hips were doing was going from here to here, to here, to here, to here. And that's all they will ever do. Even if you doubled up with the same punch, you threw a left hook and then you threw a left hook again. You'd throw the left hook, the hips would rotate to this position, and then they'd have to rotate here before you could throw it again. And this is how you combine defense and offense to be a much more effective boxer. You can use this in what we call 2 or 3 phase combinations. So it's all effectively about anticipating what your opponent's going to throw. For example, if I threw a jab and I was already anticipating, I was one step ahead of what they're going to do in reaction to my jab, they might be there ready to slip and throw a right hand. So if I jab, I use this flow of defending before I've slipped their right hand now because I've rotated this way, and I can come back with a left hook. Still that same flow rotation, but I'm anticipating what they're doing. I'm throwing combinations in multiple phases, putting defenses in between. This is how we link our offenses to defenses. Of course, we need to do this whilst we're moving around the ring using our feet. So combine what you learned in the footwork section of this video with the flow of boxing, and then you'll have a much more effective boxing style. The final thing we want to talk about is feints. Feints and drawing your opponent. So a feint is essentially selling to your opponent that you're going to throw a certain punch. For example, feinting a jab to the body, I'm trying to make my opponent think that I'm going to throw a jab to the body, and then I look at their reaction. A great example of this is Floyd Mayweather's fight, where he was throwing a jab to the body. He threw it like 3 times, and then he'd feint the jab to the body after he'd seen their reaction to the jab to the body was to bring their right hand down. After he feinted, then he threw the left hook to their head because he knew there'd be an open position there after they moved their right hand out of the way. Drawing is slightly different. Drawing is trying to get a punch or reaction out of your opponent whilst they're like attacking you. So you can do this by like putting your head in range, having a high guard, trying to bait them, trying to get them to throw a certain punch so you can be one step ahead, react to that punch and land a shot of your own. For example, I could bait them like this, wait for them to throw a jab, then I could lean back and throw a right hand. That's an example of drawing your opponent. If you found this video useful at all, which I'm sure you did because you basically taught the entirety of the foundations of boxing, then make sure you leave a like, subscribe, hit the bell for more videos just like this.